Good evening, baseball fans. How you doing? Mets fans are about to jump off a cliff, and all of the ears around Queens were listening to everything Steve Cohen had to say today. He talked how he feels about the Mets. He talked what's going to be happening with the Mets. We'll dive into that. Could the Reds be in some trouble? Hunter Greene looking like he's going to be missing some time. We'll discuss that. Alek Manoah got absolutely shellacked in his minor league start. We'll discuss that. We got some Chaim Bloom notes to talk about. Ronald Acuna Jr. is amazing. Xander Bogarts is not a happy man. Let's get to it. Baseball fans, how you doing? Hello. Who is here in the chat? What is going on, everyone? Combat Jones, hello. Foxy, what's going on? Matthew Brittingham, hello. DM, it's Cat. Benny Boy, how you doing? Victor Fuentes, how you doing? Who else is in here? Who else we got? We got Robert here. We got Conman752. How you doing, my friend? Armando. I don't know if you're still here or not, but if you are here, hello, Armando. How you doing? Hope you're having a good summer, my friend. Who else we got in here? We got Matt. Hello, my friend. We got John Ray is here. Hello. Chris Matthews is here. What's going on? Realistic Thought. Gunnar Tormanen. How you doing? Cody Fletcher. Hello. Blue Rules 26. Hello. Everyone, how you doing? Welcome to tonight's show. We're not going to keep you here too long tonight. Bit of a quicker show. Just hopping on here, talking the latest across Major League Baseball. And my Red Sox stink. I mean, my goodness. It had a rain delay. They come back, and they just start playing terrible fundamental baseball. Wild pitch, make an error. And all of a sudden, a tie game turns into a 3-1 lead for the Marlins. And I'm gonna tell you this. I don't know. Is it just me, or is it weird that the Marlins are playing good baseball this year after it feels like forever? It feels like I think honestly, I don't know. I'd have to look back at this. Was the last time the Marlins had this good of a record was probably 2003, 20 years ago. 20 years since they've won a World Series. Is it destiny? This year, are the Marlins going to win one this year? 20 years after winning it in 2003? I'm just saying, man. Good pitching. This team is fun, man. Like, they're a fun team to watch. I know my Red Sox aren't playing great baseball lately, but, hey, the Marlins, man, I think if they make the playoffs, I think they could be a pretty dangerous team. I think a lot of people might be sleeping on them. I'm just saying. I really like this Marlins pitching. These guys throw hard. Man, you had... you had Braxton tonight just pitching really well until the rain delay. You got Luzardo pitching tomorrow. I think this Marlins team, man, I think they're being slept on a little bit. Anyway, those are just my thoughts about that right now. But we got a lot to talk about. Speaking of the Marlins, in the National League East, we got the Mets. Horrible this year. My goodness, probably the biggest disappointment of all time. Steve Cohen, he got up on the podium today. He talked some Mets. He talked his feelings on everything. I mean, it was pretty predictable what he was going to say, but there were a couple of things he said that I think could maybe he talked in generalities a lot today, but there were a couple things he said that I thought were pretty interesting. So we'll get to those comments here. Alek Manoah, my goodness. Believe it or not, as bad as Alek Manoah was in his minor league start, there were actually a lot of positive things being said. We'll talk about that as well. What else we got? Oh, yeah, also with the Mets, could Max Scherzer possibly be traded? I mean, my goodness. Could Max Scherzer be traded for the second time in 3 years? Remember he went to the Dodgers a couple of years ago. Could he be traded once again? We'll talk about that story. Chaim Bloom, speaking of my Red Sox, he talked a little bit about the Red Sox trade deadline plans, and we'll dive into that. Ronald Acuna Jr., he's amazing. He's got some history right now, and he made some history yesterday, and I actually put the numbers on paper, looking at if he were to play 150 games this year, what he would finish with. I'll talk about those when I get to that story. Everyone, thank you for coming out tonight. I appreciate it. Here we go. Let's get to it here. Before I do get started, we have to go over tonight's sponsor. I've been usually doing this about halfway through the stream, but I'm just going to get it out of the way so we just can all settle in and we can talk some baseball. So, sponsoring tonight's show is Sorare MLB. I've been enjoying playing this all year. It's been a refreshing way to play fantasy baseball. I've loved it for how long now? I've always been pretty good at fantasy baseball, but this was a new twist this year, playing with digital cards that you collect. As you can see here, I'm currently in 2 tournaments. These cards that you collect make up your team. And throughout the year, I've been earning cards. The better you finish in your tournaments, the better the cards you earn. And slowly but surely, I've been putting together a pretty decent roster. However, as you can see here, I have 2 different tournaments going on. I have we got the Sandlot tournament and we got the Common All-Star tournament. I'm actually doing pretty well in the Sandlot. As you can see, these are gold cards. These are harder to collect, and I actually decided to purchase myself a few of these cards. And, I figured, hey, why not? Let's see what I can do. And I'm actually doing pretty well. If you enter a harder league, the better the prizes you have a chance of getting. But for the cards that you just you earn throughout the year based off of how well you finish in the tournaments, and the cards that you draft initially, I've used these cards to enter the Common All-Star tournament, and I'm not doing very good this week. I got a game left for each of these guys. I'm hoping I can get some more points. Aaron Judge, he's been killing me. Has not been playing, so not doing too well here, but it's very easy for you to get started. Click on the link in the description down below. It's completely free to get started. Hey, go see if you can put together a team that can finish better than me. I know a lot of you have been playing this year. Dulcie Marist, one of our subscribers here on the channel, he's been really good at this year. I've been seeing him in some of the tournaments, and he's been doing really well. So I know some of you are enjoying it, but if you want to get started, go ahead, click the link in the description down below. Alrighty, everyone, let's get to it here. I feel like I'm rambling. Alrighty, so let's get to the first story of the night. And, everyone right now, I feel like everyone in the world is just talking New York Mets. Excuse me. Is talking New York Mets at the moment. And Steve Cohen, he actually sat down today, had a press conference. And, a lot of people were waiting to see what he had to say. Every team, when their owner sits down, like John Henry of the Red Sox, because you don't hear the owners talk all that much. Steve Cohen is more active than other owners out there, but when the owner has a press conference and they're sitting down with the media, you gotta listen, because these are the head honchos here, and we all know Steve Cohen, one of the wealthiest men in the world. Obviously, ever since he's taken over the Mets, they've been spending big time money. So he's a bit of a lightning rod, I would say. So when he sat down today, he had a lot to say. So with Steve Cohen, he obviously, stated, disappointed. What else could you possibly feel about this Mets team? It's not clicking. The pitching's been terrible this year. They've had a couple of good pieces, with the pitching, but overall it has not performed either in the rotation and in the bullpen. Again, a couple of guys have been really stepping up, but as a whole, not great. The offense is pretty middle of the road for the most part. They have their moments where they look really good, but overall, this Mets team, 36-43 as of right now. They find themselves 8.5 games back in the wild card race. I mean, who would have thought? This is the team. I had this team going to the World Series this year. I really thought the combo of Scherzer, Verlander, proven winners, guys that are still, despite their age, are still pitching very well. And it's just not been clicking this year. We'll talk about Max Scherzer in just a little bit. But with Cohen, again, pretty predictable, talking about his disappointment. But a lot of people have been wondering, what's going to be happening here. Buck Showalter, Billy Epler, the manager and the general manager. And, I agree with what Steve Cohen. I feel like the majority of people out there agree on the fact that Steve Cohen, what he said today was pretty reasonable. I mean, really, when you just think of it in terms of common sense, I mean, before I even get into what he said here, to me, I mean, is it really going to make a difference if you're going to be firing Buck Showalter right now? Sure, we saw some managerial changes last year, but this is a bit of a different case. Like, this is the Mets here. I know the Phillies last year, they turned to Thompson. Sure, yeah, that really turned around their season. It woke some guys up, but I feel like this is a different monster. Buck Showalter with the big name that he is as a manager. Mets fans, yeah, there's a lot of them out there that have not been happy with how he's been managing the team. Last year everything was clicking, and now this year it's just not. And Mets fans have not been happy with decisions he's been making with the bullpen, what he's been doing with the lineup on certain days. But right now, I think just because of the lightning rod that the Mets are, by firing their manager, it's only going to attract more negative attention, and it's just going to be more of a distraction than, say, what the Phillies did last year. The Phillies, despite, they spend a lot of money, but they're a bit more of an under-the-radar kind of a team when it comes to media. Yeah, sure, they have their fans, and they have their passionate fans, but the New York media is very different, and especially with how the Mets, how they operate, with what Steve Cohen's been doing, spending all this money. If you fire Buck Showalter, that's just going to be a huge distraction. Whereas last year with the Phillies, it was, yes, it got attention, but it didn't really get that lightning rod of like national media attention. So yeah, baseball fans were very into it, but when it comes to just the outlets, in New York, the media outlets, yeah, that would be just insane if they fired Showalter, and even Billy Epler. But like at this point in time, could there be a better guy out there that could take over at the moment? Sure, there maybe. I don't know who that person would be. Maybe Mets fans, maybe of a person that could take over and help spark this team a little bit. I think with Showalter, a veteran manager that he is, I feel like you just got to stick with him. Based off of a feel thing, it doesn't seem like the right move to replace Showalter at this point. And then Epler, I mean, it's a little weird to be, getting rid of your GM at this point in time. And I'll actually talk more about Epler here in just a little bit. But here were the comments from Steve Cohen. He says here, if you want to attract good people to this organization, the worst thing you can do is be impulsive and win the headline for the day. You're not going to attract the best talent. You're not going to want to work with somebody who has a short fuse, Cohen told reporters. I know fans want something to happen. I get it, but sometimes you can't do it because you have long-term objectives. So he makes a really good point that, oh man, I thought the Marlins just hit a home run. But he makes a good point. When you're talking about the Mets, when Steve Cohen took over, I think a lot of people, obviously, the initial thought were, oh yeah, the Mets, they're going to be dropping some bucks. They're going to be backing up the Brink trucks. They're going to be spending money. But you also have to understand, too, that the Mets, the reason they've been spending this money is because they are trying to put a competitive team on the field while also trying to build up the farm. They're trying, the Red Sox have been doing the same thing with Chaim Bloom, right? Maybe not obviously spending as much money as the Mets are, but the Red Sox have been spending money on guys. Yeah, sure, they didn't sign Xander Bogarts to a long-term deal, Mookie Betts obviously, but they have been spending money. So a lot of Red Sox fans out there saying that the Red Sox haven't been spending money. They've definitely been signing guys, not superstar kind of caliber players, but they have been dropping money. The Mets, on the other hand, they've been dropping a ton of money. Oh, Oh, of course. Now the Marlins hit a home run. I thought the Marlins just hit a home run, but it was a fly ball. And then I turn back, and Jazz Chisholm just hits a freaking moonshot out to center field. My goodness, Jazz Chisholm. Goodness gracious. But anyway, for the Mets, yeah, you have to look at the Mets. Obviously, you want to put a competitive team on the field right now, and to be able to put a good team on the field, you got to spend money, and they really tried to go above and beyond, and they tried to bring in big names that they could invest in the team now, so that way they wouldn't have to trade, prospects to be able to bring in some big names. So I understand the approach the Mets took. So that's what he means here, is that you want to attract good people to the organization. Obviously, you care about the long-term future for the Mets in terms of players, but you also have to look at it too from an organizational point of view. At the end of the day, you got to have people that want to come and work for you that aren't playing on the field, right? That work in those front offices, that will be, making those baseball decisions. And if you're just getting rid of guys right now, sure, the Phillies, it was a little different last year, but that had more to do with the philosophical approach of the team, where Joe Girardi just wasn't the fit. The players weren't responding. Sure, you could say the same thing about Showalter and the Mets players, but Girardi just wasn't getting on with the front office with the Phillies. So they had to make that change, and the Phillies front office, they came together and said, yeah, it's probably best we go with a different approach. Whereas the Mets here, sure, are players really fully responding to Showalter? It doesn't seem like the same thing to me. It seems like a bit of a different scenario going on. I think players respect Showalter, and I think they enjoy playing for him. I think it's just a matter of probably the best decisions aren't being made. But for the Mets, yeah, for Cohen, I agree with what he's saying here. If you want to attract good people to the organization, you can't just be making these kind of moves, because then people are going to be looking at the Mets and being like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I want to come work for this organization, because, if they're firing Epler and they're just, they're getting rid of Showalter after spending all this money, is my job security going to be safe? Am I going to be walking on eggshells in this organization? So, yeah, I think Steve Cohen, you got to remember here, Steve Cohen didn't become a freaking billionaire by accident. The guy's a businessman. Sure, have these business decisions not really worked out this year? No, not really. But you gotta at least give him, the credit for at least letting Epler go out there and make these kind of moves. So, yeah, sometimes you're gonna make bad investments. That's just being a businessman. You're gonna make good investments, and you're definitely gonna make bad ones as well. Cohen did not become a billionaire by accident. Obviously, the guy is a business-savvy man. He knows how to operate a business. It's just that it's proven. You can nitpick things that he's done throughout his career, owning different businesses and whatnot. But at the end of the day, he made it to where he is because, yeah, he definitely probably he made some bad calls at some point. But he's made a lot of good ones, too. And I think you have to agree with him here. And I think that's a pretty common sense thing to say. He's just looking at the long-term picture as well. He's looking at the big picture and not just the short-term picture, small picture. So he goes on to say, he talks a little bit more about Billy Epler. Now, this is where I'm actually going to dive in. And now that I've really I think about it, remember, this is what speaking of businesses, speaking of, running a company, right? It always starts at the top, whether you're Publix down here, down south, the grocery store, or you're like Stop and Shop up north, or you're Apple or whatever business. The success of your business always starts from the top and it trickles down. Now with the Mets, you got to remember here, their front office is not really set up like a lot of other organizations in baseball. They don't have a president of baseball operations. And I'm wondering if that is maybe starting to come into play a bit here, and that's coming back to bite them. Remember, they went after David Stearns, the former president of baseball operations for the Brewers. He's had those connections with the Mets, and I still think that guy is going to end up being the president of baseball ops down the road. But, you got to remember here with Billy Epler. Now, the one thing with Billy Epler, we always remember, I'm using Wikipedia as a source here. Bite me. I just needed something quick. But you remember with Billy Epler, during his time with the Angels, he signed big names, right? He brought in Ohtani, obviously Trout, they drafted him. Remember they brought in names like Justin Upton, Anthony Rendon, Andrelton Simmons here as well. I know I'm leaving off some other names. They were signing guys. They were trying to really put a team together, and it didn't work out. It almost kind of gives me those same vibes here with the Mets now that I really think about all of it, and it just, once again, isn't working. I think Billy Epler, I think he is a good person to have because he is well-versed in when it comes to, analytics and whatnot. He's done work with analytics in the past, so I think he's fine to have in your organization. But as the guy kind of leading the way, I don't know about that. I feel like they really need a guy that can kind of go a little deeper instead of just signing names, right? Like Scherzer, Verlander. I think you need a guy that can make those kind of moves, but also make moves that are a bit more outside the box. I think that's what they need at the end of the day. It feels like the Mets, even coming into this year, yes, I believed in this Mets team, but it still felt like something was missing with this team. Obviously Diaz went down. I think that really took a lot of the sails out for the Mets. I really do. But it felt like the offense was still missing something, and now they're middle of the road. Felt like they needed another bat somewhere. It just felt like a team that looked good on the surface, but maybe when you look at it a little deeper, it lacked, it kind of just lacked that juice. Right? I don't know if I'm really making much sense with that, but with the Mets, I think you need someone that's going to make those moves that other guys out there aren't thinking of, right? Bringing in certain relievers that can maybe, guys that can, for your bullpen, right? That can maybe give you a bit of a different look at different times, maybe signing a starting pitcher that maybe you see a quality about that guy that other teams don't, and then you end up working with him and you can find, something out of him, right? Like an example would be, I'm not trying to use my Red Sox here. I'm not trying to be biased, but like I always look at the Nick Pivetta signing as something where, he's not, well, he's gone to the bullpen now and he's been good, but Nick Pivetta, I feel like has been for the most part pretty solid, but you remember with the Phillies, he just couldn't get it together. Bloom saw something in him, and Bloom has seen, things in other guys too, and he's been able to get the best out of them. Now, obviously, the Red Sox are not having the most success, but I think the Red Sox in the next couple of years, I think they're going to be back to being a consistent, a team that can win consistently. I'm not trying to make this about the Red Sox. I'm just saying, I think the Mets need a guy that's going to be able to think outside the box. I think, instead of just like, oh, there's a name, we're going to sign him. There's a name, let's sign him. Scherzer, Verlander, right? Kind of under the radar moves is what I think the Mets need to do to kind of get that team like over that hump a little bit. Also, even looking at things like a player's personality. Will that player fit well into the clubhouse? I think that's an underrated thing in baseball. What is their reputation like around the league? Well, I think that's another big job for, whoever's running the baseball operations. They need to be able to not just put together talent on a team, but is the team going to mesh? I'm wondering if that's also a problem for the Mets this year. I wouldn't say these guys don't like each other. I just feel like something's not right and something is just off. So, Jimmy Productions, how you doing, my friend? Did you see Cody Duncan tweet on Twitter about Dylan Cruz not wanting to get drafted by the Pirates and Talk Nats tweet? No, I didn't see that. I have been seeing mock drafts out there having I'm going blank on his name. I'm not in draft mode at the moment. The LSU picture going number 1 possibly. But I did see something about Dylan Cruz. I'll be completely honest. I'm not in draft mode, like completely. I'm going to be here in the next couple of weeks. I'm starting to get ramped up a little bit. But I did not see that tweet specifically, but I saw something about Dylan Cruz that I didn't really dive into. But I saw some mock drafts out there that kind of switched up at the number 1 spot. I know Dylan Cruz is a good player. Like, that dude is going to be good. So I do find that interesting that he wouldn't want to get drafted by the Pirates. I don't know, man. I've heard stuff like that before. I just find that so weird, man, that, like, you know, some players don't want to get drafted by certain teams. I guess if you're that good, you got that kind of leverage. But, hey, that could really definitely interrupt things when it comes to the draft. Because if a team catches wind that you don't want to go there, there's definitely been times where teams have avoided a guy, right? So we'll have to wait and see on that. But, yeah, we are getting closer and closer to draft season here. All-Star break now in a little over a couple of weeks. So that's going to be exciting. But, yeah, draft, I'm definitely going to be upping the draft coverage here over the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. Thank you, Jimmy Productions. I appreciate that. Anyway, getting back to the Mets, let's kind of start to wrap this up a little bit. I was kind of rambling there. But I think the Mets, I do think they need to add something different in the president of baseball operations position, because it just feels like Billy Epler, I don't know, man. He's had a history of this with the Angels. He signed big names, and they just haven't worked out. I don't know. I think you need a guy that's going to be able to look outside the box, and I think the Mets, they really need that. But he did go on to say here about the addition of a president of baseball operations. He says here, my view is this is a very complex job, and there's a lot to do, and it's a lot on one person. That's still out there. We'll see. At some point, we will fill that position. How that might affect Epler's future with the organization is undetermined. No new hire seems imminent, so the second-year GM will continue running the front office for the near future at least. So again, I do think Billy Epler, I think it's fine to keep him in the organization. I just think he needs someone with him. At least that's what it looks like on the surface. Obviously, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it just seems like maybe they need a guy that can offer a different perspective. That's at least my opinion. Jimmy Productions, another super chat. So the Mets are now out of the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes because Ohtani wants to go to a winner, and he's not going to win anything with the Mets. I never saw Ohtani going to the Mets in free agency. I don't see it. I think in the end, Ohtani, he's either going to stay with the Angels or he'll go to the Dodgers. He'll go to one of the West Coast teams. I don't see him going on the East Coast. I really don't. If there was a trade, I could see an East Coast team, taking him for half a season. I think he'd be okay with that too, as long as it was just for half a season and getting a chance to compete in the playoffs. But I think, honestly, I think a lot of people, I know we're talking, Billy Epler with the Angels. I think a lot of people, they're sleeping on the Angels, possibly hanging on to him. They're playing pretty decently this year. You gotta, what will Ohtani think at the end of the year? If the Angels are competing for the rest of the year, will that be enough to change his mind? I think it could. If they're right there in the wild card, even if they don't make the playoffs, but they're close, could that maybe change his mind? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I think if he doesn't go back to the Angels, I think the Dodgers are extremely likely. We'll see. But Jimmy Productions, one more super chat. Brad Ausmus would be a good general manager. He was a finalist for the Astros GM job. Yeah, I like Brad Ausmus. Always a pretty solid dude when he was playing. Not a whole, yeah, why not? I mean, I think it's always valuable to add guys like that have that experience in the major leagues. I think it's always, yeah, why not? Yeah, I forgot he was the finalist for that job. Yeah, we'll see. Could he end up getting something else this offseason? We'll have to wait and see. Jimmy, thank you. You're awesome right now. You're really contributing with the super chats. Do appreciate that, my friend. But yeah, let's start to wrap it up here with Steve Cohen. Yeah, I think honestly, MLB trade rumors, they get into in this article about David Stearns right? It says here, if that hiring process runs into next offseason, it's sure to invite plenty of speculation about David Stern's future. The Mets reportedly showed interest in Stearns over the 2021-22 offseason prior to hiring Epler. He was still serving as Brewers president of baseball operations at the time, though. And the owner of the Brewers, Mark, am I pronouncing this right? Atanasio? I think I said that right. Declined to grant the Mets permission for an interview. So, and then Stearns ended up stepping down from the Brewers. And then he stepped into more of like an advisory role. I just feel like, man, I think that would be a good guy to put in there. A guy that can, because he did all that work with the Brewers, like, lower payroll, really being creative, adding guys and putting together those winning teams. I think someone like David Stearns working alongside with Billy Epler, I think that would be a really good combo. I think that's exactly what the Mets need. So it'll be interesting. Again, Steve Cohen today, not really saying anything crazy, just saying kind of, common sense kind of things. But I do think discussing the president of baseball ops was interesting. So I do think the Mets, that's something you will see in the offseason. So we'll have to wait and see. But can the Mets turn it around? I'm still holding out a little hope that the Mets can, figure this out after the All-Star break. He did talk about as well, what they could do at the trade deadline. So it says here, if I'm in this position where they're at in the standings, I'm not adding. I think that would be pretty silly. He didn't sound anxious to tear the roster down either, saying the team would probably do very little if they're out of contention. David Robertson, Tommy Pham, Carlos Carrasco are the club's notable and pending free agents. And you got Scherzer, Narvaez, and Ottavino. They have opt-out clauses. And then you have options with Kana and Raley, and then Pete Alonso under arbitration for one more season. So, yeah, I could definitely see them making the moves like Robertson and Pham and Carrasco. But one guy that is really interesting is Max Scherzer. Luke with a super chat. You guys are going crazy with the super chats. Braves as a team in June, hitting 306 with a 373 on base, a 548 slugging with a 145 WRC plus, and a 20-4 record. Best team in baseball. I moved them to the number one spot, and they have proved me right. So the Braves are playing great baseball. I'm going to talk about the Braves in just a little bit, but let's talk about Max Scherzer. Let's talk about Max Scherzer. Story came out yesterday. Max Scherzer reportedly open to waiving his no-trade clause. That is interesting because, hey, we all know Max Scherzer. The guy's an absolute psychopath. He's nuts. He had the whole thing with the sticky stuff this year. I don't know. Was he doing it intentional? I don't know. But Max Scherzer, as of right now, he is in a big deal with the Mets. If we go take a look at what's going on with him when it comes to his contract. Remember, he's almost 39 years old. He's making $43.3 million per year. He can opt out after this season. I don't think a lot of people thought that would actually be a serious thing, but he can. Will he? I don't know, man. If I'm Scherzer, oh my God, you're gonna opt out of over $40 million for 1 year? I mean, I don't know. If there was maybe one guy out there to do something like that, I could see Scherzer doing it. Maybe he opts out and he takes like a 2-year, like 60, to where like, yeah, he would give up the $43 million for 1 year, but then maybe he could take a 2-year, to where, yeah, like, or he could finish out the contract and then he could do like a 1 year, like 25 or something like that for 2025. I think it really comes down to, what is he going to want more? Does he want to compete, or does he just want to get paid at the end of his career? That's a lot of money to turn down. I mean, I could maybe see him doing it though, if he thinks like, oh, you know what? I'll opt out. Yeah. Like, I want to go sign with a team that I think is, they have it together, depending on how he feels about what the Mets are doing, with their, front office. It'll be interesting. But I could see him doing that and just taking a 2-year deal, maybe somewhere else with a team that is, consistently in contention. I could see that. It'll be interesting. But I do find it, honestly, when I saw this, I'm like, wow, Scherzer? Oh, basically, he is saying here that he would be open to a trade. I mean, obviously, that's exactly what it says. But like, he is willing, or could it mean that he's just like kind of tired of it? Like, he's tired of just being on this team, and he just wants to go elsewhere. Does this suggest that he's just really like, obviously he's frustrated with the team, but I mean, the fact that this is even getting out, I mean, is that like, does he just really want out? I find that interesting that this even got out. I'm not sure where it came. I think it came from Anthony DiComo. I'm not sure where he got this, but it's saying industry sources. I don't know, man. If I were a player and I just really wanted to get out, and like I really wanted to go play for, try and win a championship, to me, I would put this out there. Like, yeah, like I want to get out of here, man. Could you, my agent, hey man, could you try and maybe heat up this market a little bit? Especially, what I also find interesting is that this even got out, first off, but it's also going to be a really thin market for starting pitching. The demand is going to be through the roof. It's going to be hard to get starting pitching. And if you're the Mets, right now, with Max Scherzer, he has a negative 7.3 median value as of right now. The reason it's that low, remember, when it comes to baseball trade values, you're looking at a whole bunch of different things, right? You're looking at how much money they're making, and you're subtracting that from their performance on the field, their age, their projections, the length of their contract, right? A whole bunch of different factors, right? So when you subtract how much he's making from his value, his field performance, right now it's coming out at negative 7.3 on the median level, right? I mean, honestly, that is actually pretty good considering he's making $43 million. I mean, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So, yeah, absolutely. That doesn't seem all that crazy to me. I could see a lot of people saying, what? Scherzer, negative value? When you look at the money he's making, that makes sense. So, but that is not crazy. And if he has the opt-out, the one thing with Scherzer, I could see a team being hesitant about this, because if he doesn't opt out, well, then that team is on the hook for $43 million. So, I mean, what team would want to take on that money? Would the Rangers be willing to take on that money? You lost DeGrom. I mean, I know you just had Scherzer and DeGrom, but could they maybe be back together for another year? Paying those two guys, they're back together. I don't see a lot of teams that would really want to pay that kind of money. The Dodgers, they're not going to bring him back. I don't see the Braves paying him that money. The only team I could really see like dishing out that money would be the Rangers. Maybe the Padres. Could the Padres go for it again? They tried trading for him a couple of years ago. Yeah, the Padres, I could see them giving him that money. But the Padres aren't really they're not in the best position to buy right now. So would that even make sense? Really, with the Padres, you wouldn't have to give up all that much if you were willing to take on his contract. That is the big thing. So, it's possible. Padres tried a couple of years ago. Could they do it again? Maybe the Phillies. That could be interesting. Scherzer, Harper, former Nationals. back together on the Phillies. Could see that. The Yankees wouldn't do it. Not the Mariners. I don't see them doing that. Not the Giants. That would be the 3 teams that I would think would probably make the most sense and be willing to take on the money. Would be the Phillies, the Padres, and the Rangers. I see Baltimore, Ramon Issa, Baltimore. I don't know, like Baltimore, they just don't strike me as a team that really wants to spend that kind of money. I think that would be awesome. How cool would that be if he went to the Orioles? That'd be really fun. Sound FX09, the Padres would be most likely. Atlanta would have to sell whatever prospects we have left, which ain't happening. Well, here's the thing, Sound FX. If you take on that money right now because he has a negative value, you're really not going to have to give up all that much. I would like maybe a top 10, possibly. But at that point, you're probably looking at overpaying right there. So I could say, honestly, maybe a couple of prospects, like 10 to 15 in that range. Maybe a top 10, depending on, how good that prospect is. I don't think it would take all that much if you were willing to take the money on. So now, if the Mets were willing to pay it down, if the Mets wanted to pay down the salary, well then yeah, you're gonna have. Then at that point, you're gonna have to give up prospects in that position. So honestly, I think, and really the 3 teams that I think make sense for Scherzer would be, honestly, now that I say the Phillies out loud, the Phillies, but then again, you're trading in division. Do you really want to trade Scherzer in division? I don't know about that. So the other 2, so the Padres, I think I agree with you here, Sound FX. The Padres, I think, would be the most likely team because they went after him. They had him. It looked like, remember, I went live. I did a stream. I literally had the picture of Scherzer and the Padres logo and everything. It was announced that it was looking like it was a done deal. And then remember we sat there for 2 hours and nothing else came out, and then it ended up falling through. So I could see it, but we'll have to keep our eyes on this. And again, yeah, I could definitely see him obviously being frustrated right now. The guy's a competitor, but I do find it interesting that this even got out. That to me tells me that he's telling his agent, hey, I'm not happy here, man. Like, can you do something to try and get me to another team? So we'll have to wait and see. But let's get to a couple other stories. Could maybe this team all of a sudden needs pitching. I don't think this team would do that. It would be really cool if they did, but probably not. The Cincinnati Reds are now looking like they are going to be missing Hunter Greene for quite a bit. And that is a bummer because Hunter Greene is awesome. He's been having himself a good year. And also, one more thing with Max Scherzer. He's having himself, not really a Max Scherzer kind of a year. 3.95 ERA, 4.12 FIP. Strikeouts are down. The walks are up. The home runs are up. But he has been looking okay in his last couple of starts. Against the Phillies, he was good. Astros, he was good. So, Scherzer, I expect these numbers to keep getting better. Anyway, moving on to Hunter Greene. He has been good this year for the Reds. 14 starts, a 3.93 ERA, a FIP in the mid-threes. Very good strikeout to walk ratio, 12 strikeouts per 9. The walks are a little high, but he is striking out a lot of guys. Good velocity still on the year. The home runs are down, so that is a big thing. The BABIP is really high at 339. I think he's a little unlucky there. So I think that more hits are falling in than they should. Either way, Hunter Greene has been very good. So this is kind of a bummer that this hit problem that he's been having. Remember, Garrett Whitlock had a hit problem last year. I'm wondering, Hunter Greene, it's in his right hip, so pushing off of the rubber is giving him some issues. He's got to work on strengthening up that butt cheek, man. That glute needs some strengthening. But I've had a hip surgery before, And I'm wondering, man, if this is something that ends up lingering. I wonder in the offseason if he ends up getting a surgery on it just to kind of shave down the joint itself, right? You got the ball and socket, you got the hip itself and moving around. Maybe it's not moving around quite as well in there because a lot of the time, a lot of people, they actually have lesions on their, the hip in the socket and the joint, the ball itself. And when they're kind of banging up against each other, you're not really getting a whole lot of mobility in that hip. So I'm wondering if maybe that could be going on because that was something I was going through. I just had a lot of issues. So I'm wondering, could he have an off-season hip surgery? It's like a few months of rehab. So I don't think it would really be something that would go crazy, into, where he would have to miss like a lot of time. Could he end up missing like the first month or so? Maybe, but I'll keep my eyes out for that. Anyway, that's not the point. But it's looking like he's not going to be out until August. He's going to be doing a strengthening program, and then he's going to get back to throwing again. Either way, but for the Reds, though, that's not good, man, because their starting pitching has not been good. They haven't had Nick Lodolo. So right now, your rotation is Graham Ashcraft, Levi Stout, Brandon Williamson, Abbott, who has been good this year, and Luke Weaver. Right now, the Reds need something. I think they need to go after something, man. Max Scherzer would be awesome. Can they please make this trade? That would be fantastic. How awesome would that be? Sky Flavel, how you doing? Padres fan here. I've watched every game since 2015. That's awesome. And this is the worst product I've watched in a long time. They are a broken team with zero chemistry. You beat me to the punch. I was going to talk about the Padres here in a little bit. But yeah, it seems like spending money on these players, all this money that they're spending, like the Mets and the Padres, it doesn't seem to be helping with chemistry. I'm just saying. Like Michael Scott always said in The Office, mo money, mo problems. I'm just saying. Anyway, thank you for the super chat. I'm going to get to the Padres in just a little bit. I do appreciate that. Now, the Reds, hey, I think they could use a trade here. Look out for the Reds on that market, but I don't think they're going to go crazy. I think they will look for the right deal, right? But they're not going to be like going out there like the Mariners were last year and just, blowing up, blowing up their farm, giving up, two of their top three prospects to get a deal done. I don't see the Reds doing something like that. They seem to be really committed, to really building the future. And obviously it's been paying off this year. I don't see the Reds, they're playing ahead of expectations this year, kind of like the Orioles were last year. But for the Reds, they're in a much better situation because you're in this weak division that they are leading right now by half a game. Who knows what ends up happening with this division? The Cubs are still there. The Cardinals, could they get hot? I don't know. But this is, I still think, a very up in the air Central Division. So, I think they need to trade for a starter. I think that is absolutely on the menu for them with Hunter Greene out now until, August. And if you can get like a good guy, you got to use Lucas Giolito as the example. If you could win those sweepstakes and you have Giolito and then Greene comes back and he's healthy. Oh, the Red Sox making a comeback. Oh, man. Jarren Duran. I think that was Jarren Duran that just came through. 6-2. Let's go, Boston. Oh, God. The Red Sox stink. But yeah, if you can get a guy like Giolito, Greene comes back, and then Lodolo ends up coming back, I mean, that's pretty decent right there, if you ask me. It's pretty decent. So we'll keep an eye out for the Reds when it comes to the trade deadline. They are definitely going to be needing some starting pitching. So unless they maybe, they kind of just stick with what they got. They do have guys. But yeah, I don't think it would hurt, but I don't see them blowing up the farm. Jacob Tobin, how you doing? My Twins, the MLB version of the Broncos. The Twins, man. I don't know what's going on with this Twins team. It's like this. What is up with the Central Divisions this year? Why can't the Central Divisions play good baseball. Like, I don't get it. Like, they are 40-42. Oh my God, they're in first place and they're 40-42. The Guardians are tied. The Guardians have moved back into a tie. The Tigers are 4.5 out. The White Sox are still 5.5 out, and they're 13 games under 500. This is the most ridiculous division I have ever seen. Could you imagine one of these teams from the AL Central making it to the World Series? I would die laughing if that ended up happening. My God. But let's move on here. Let's talk a little Alek Manoah. Alek Manoah, wow. I mean, I think it's pretty much, there's not really much else to say about Alek Manoah and the year that he's had. Pretty awful. 13 starts, ERA in the FIP, in the 6s. But Alek Manoah just went down for a rehab start, and it was pretty bad. It was not good. And taking a look at that start, he went this is in the CPX, which is rookie ball. Some of a lot of these players that are in this league, they're like 18, 19 years old, even younger, even 16 and 17. Like, it's pretty nuts, right? And this dude went 2 2/3 innings. He gave up 10 hits, 11 earned runs, 2 home runs. You have 10 hits. So you're probably thinking here, Joe Hill with a $10 super chat, was Frank right? Are you talking about Frank the Tank with the Mets? What? I don't know. I don't know what that means. Was Frank right? Joe, I need more details, my friend. Frank. Do you mean Frank the Tank? The Mets super fan that's with Barstool Sports? Anytime I hear Frank, that's who I think of. I think that's who you're talking about. But Joe Hill, give me more details in the chat. $10 super chat from Frank. Or not from Frank, from Joe. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. But Alek Manoah, yeah, when you see something like this, you're probably thinking, oh boy, it is over. Alek Manoah is done. He is cooked. Well, Joe Hill. Oh, okay, Joe Hill. You said yes. Frank the Tank. Sorry. What did he say? I don't know what Frank the Tank said. Let me know what Frank the Tank said. Did he predict a bad season for the Mets? I'm not sure. But Alek Manoah, awful start in the minor leagues. However, he was getting praise. So it says here, from John Schneider, the manager. Why can't I highlight this? From John Schneider, the Blue Jays manager. He actually had something good to say. It says here from RotoWire News, despite his awful line in the box score, the Blue Jays felt that Manoah did what he needed to do on the mound during Tuesday's start in the Florida Complex League, Gregor Chisholm of the Toronto Star reports. John Schneider goes on to say, I obviously saw the line score and all that stuff, but I heard that the things we were talking about in terms of strike throwing, delivery, tempo, velo were all positive. So maybe he went into that start, like maybe they just told him, look, don't worry about how many runs you give up. Don't worry about how many hits you might give up. Just focus on your mechanics. Focus on just throwing strikes. Focus on good command. And maybe it just kind of turned out like this. That's the only way I could really see this happening. But, man, when I see something like this, I'm not an expert here. You know, I'm just a dope that sits at my desk. But this is pretty, this is pretty horrific. Like, you're probably thinking here, is this guy broke? Like, is he broken? But that's the only way maybe I could see that, this was okay. If maybe they just wanted him to focus on something with his mechanics and just said, don't worry about the results. Just worry about how you feel. But it's never never inspiring to see something like this, especially at that level when you dominated in the major leagues last year. That's pretty rough. But he did get support from John Schneider, and actually Marcus Stroman even took to Twitter and said here, I can't wait for Manoah to get back to Marcus Stroman. I can't wait for Manoah to get back to the MLB, to get back to the Major League Baseball. Dang it, Stroman. You are in Major League Baseball. How do you do this? You put the. Why are you putting the? Stroman. I can't wait for Manoah to get back to the MLB and make y'all eat your words. Stroman, you just ate your words by saying the. All of you clowns hating on another man is just a projection of your own insecurities and life struggles. Yeah, I can agree with that a little bit. I think people that are like going out there and just trashing on, a guy for not performing well and, failing, those kind of people do like to jump on those people. So yeah, I can agree with what he's saying there. Times like these are when true athletes are transformed. Looking forward to his return. Oh, no. The Comeback Jones, no. Stroman puts his PIN number into the ATM machine. No. But yeah, I agree with this. It's a lot of people, they love to be negative on Twitter. Man, I'll tell you this right now. Speaking of this part, I was on Bleacher Report yesterday. I actually did like a stream with Bleacher Report. I gave some predictions for the trade deadline. I tried to have some fun with it. It's still like a month away from the trade deadline. It is almost impossible to make predictions for the trade deadline. It's hard, man, to make predictions for that, especially when you're a month out. It's hard to make predictions in general. You all know me. I'm just terrible with predictions. So you expect me to make predictions for the trade deadline over a month out? I just try to have fun with it. Man, those people on Bleacher Report, like I went to the comments like after it, man, they were ragging on me. They were like, who's this guy with the backwards hat? Does this guy think he's cool with his backwards hat? Yeah, I like my backwards hat. You leave me alone. Other people were like, man, this guy just loves to hear himself talk and blah, blah. I was like, jeez, like these are brutal comments from the Bleacher Report audience. Goodness gracious. I can't, am I that bad? I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe some of them were just having a little trouble with their own life, and they just didn't like what I had to say. Anyway, Marcus Stroman, I can appreciate that he's sticking up for a fellow major leaguer. These guys, all these guys that play in the major leagues, it's a brotherhood at the end of the day. So, Stroman, he's definitely said some weird things in the past. I don't know. He's an outspoken guy. He's been interesting. But I could appreciate that he's sticking up for someone, someone that's not even on his team. So, hey, Marcus Stroman, former Blue Jay. But, I am kind of with him there. Like, I hope Manoah, you don't want to see a guy fail like that. Yeah, he's going through a really rough time. And, this guy's probably really feeling it mentally right now, man. Like, I would be really, I wouldn't be in a good place if I just had that. After how I pitched the previous year, that's tough. Anyway, we'll have to see how Alek Manoah's next minor league start goes. So, moving on, let's stay in the American League East. Let's talk my Red Sox. I'm not going to take too long on this because, obviously, I like to talk about everything going on in Major League Baseball. I don't want to spend too much time on my Red Sox, but I do like talking about my Red Sox. So, there's nothing crazy here with this story. Basically, Chaim Bloom, he's sort of just waiting to get to the trade deadline to really just decide what they want to do. I mean, I know, the most shocking story on the planet. What can you say? But he made some comments saying, if we're able to play well, that should make us more aggressive. That frankly dictates how you go into the deadline and what you're looking to accomplish. Nothing crazy with these comments. He's basically... But what I do find interesting about it is that, he's still holding out some hope that this Red Sox team can, play well. I mean, if we're looking at the standings right now, the Red Sox just lost, so let me refresh. the standings. This isn't, the most inspiring time to be talking about my Red Sox, but they're now 4 games out. That's crazy. They were like literally just a game out not even a week ago, and now they're back to 4. It's nuts, man. But it's not looking good. It just seems like this team, they're kind of, the more they play, it's just like, when they're winning, the Red Sox look good. Like, they have shown they can be a good team, but they have so much trouble with consistency. I don't know. There's been some games where I'm like, yeah, this team, they could get a wild card. Like when they swept the Yankees, they've won 5 out of 6 against the Yankees this year. I know the Yankees, they've had their moments, but the Yankees right now are in a playoff spot. So, people can say what they will about the Yankees, but they're in a playoff spot. The Red Sox, they played well against some of these other teams, but in the end, the Red Sox are a game above 500. When it comes to playing teams over 500. The Orioles are 3 games over 500. The Angels are 10 games under 500 against teams over 500. So, look at the Blue Jays are 22 and 24. So the Red Sox, they have beaten some good teams this year, but they just can't stay consistent. The pitching is a problem with this Red Sox team. They just seem like they are what they are, and it just feels like they're looking like they're on the way to finishing with a record of like 83 and 79, 82 and 80, which would be an improvement over last year. If we take a look here at the regular season standings from 2022, the Red Sox, if they were able to finish 83 and 79, that would be an improvement over last year. So, I still think this team is capable, but they just really need to just keep playing winning baseball consistently. But that seems to be an issue with this team. I'm not sure. But the Red Sox right now, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's just not a fun team to watch. Like, they're fun when they're winning, but man, like when Brian Bayo is out there and dominating like he has been this year, it's fun to watch. Like Paxton's been fun. Losing Sale hurt a bit. I don't know what to say. But the Red Sox, I still think personally they're going to take the approach of buying and selling. I think if they're like what they are now at the deadline, I think Kike Hernandez will be gone. James Paxton, especially in a thin market, you have to trade him. Teams are going to want starting pitching, so they'll definitely take a chance on him. You got other guys that are coming up, closer to free agency. If I were to go, let me go back to the payroll. So yeah, Kike, Paxton, Duvall as well. That's another one. Yeah, those are the 3 obvious ones. I wonder if Bloom gets creative, and because I think Bloom, I have this like hunch in my head that Bloom really wants to add young pitching. I wonder if maybe he waits until the offseason to do it, but I feel like he would like to add young pitching. Now, he was kind of looking into some moves in the offseason. Like he was talking with the Marlins about Tristan Casas, and with the Marlins, they have some young pitching. That's kind of what I was thinking about with that when those rumors were coming up. So I wonder, Casas has been hitting really well. He's the one guy that could really bring back some value. But then again, I would also love to have Casas, for the long term. Do the Red Sox feel like they could, fill that void at first base that he has not been very good defensively. So maybe they feel like long term they'd be okay without him. Alex Verdugo is a guy that they have not even approached him about an extension. I don't think they really need to at this point. If you're looking at it from a negotiation point of view, could that be someone in the offseason that you maybe look at maybe dealing away, especially if he's going into his last year of arbitration? or sign him to an extension. So I think these two guys they should pay attention to, but I don't see a team really wanting to bust down the doors for these guys. Again, I'm not saying the Red Sox should trade them, but I definitely could see a scenario where if something comes up, then maybe, and if it gets you some young starting pitching, I could see the Red Sox doing something like that. I could see Bloom doing something like that. It's not a surprise that Casas was in the rumor mill. Listen, when a guy is in the rumor mill consistently, and Casas, his name has come up, even a little bit this year too, and then, getting less playing time at one point. Like, I'm just saying, when there's smoke, even if there's a little smoke, there could be fire. Anyway, but the Red Sox, I think they're going to take the same approach as last year. They'll sell a little bit, but they'll bring pieces. They'll bring prospects back. They'll bring major league guys that can help out like they did with Tommy Pham and Hosmer last year. They'll do something similar to that, but I'm still open to the possibility that they could do something a little crazy. Bloom, I'm like waiting for him to like do something nutty like that. We already did see it with Mookie Betts. If he did the Mookie Betts thing, anything is possible. Anything. U.S. veteran, how you doing? How you doing? Man, oh man, U.S. veteran, I haven't seen you in a while. He says here, been so busy, long time no see. Hope all has been well. U.S. veteran, my friend, glad to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, man. I hope all is well with you. And hey, you're back at a good time. We're back right in the thick of things in baseball season. We got trade season coming up, draft season coming up. I appreciate U.S. veteran. Again, I hope you're doing well. Hope all is well with you, my friend. But let's move on here. And actually, since we're talking about the Red Sox, why not talk about a former friend of the Red Sox? Well, I don't know. I guess he's still a friend of the Red Sox. But man, oh man, Red Sox legend Xander Bogarts, he is not very happy right now with the San Diego Padres. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think he said something here. I don't know, man. I don't think this was the best thing to say. Now, they have not been playing well. We're talking about struggling teams here. He said, now here's one thing. This is one thing I think we can all agree on. Players don't like when you go to the media, right? They want to keep that kind of stuff in-house. Now, if a manager says something, GM says something, that's a little different. But if a player says something, I feel like more often than not, it doesn't go over well with the team. And Bogarts says here, someone was asking him, what do you think's going on with this team? He says here, lack of fight. I don't feel any of that, but maybe trying to do too much might be one reason. He goes on to say, come on, man, we're playing the Nationals. I don't think they have playoff aspirations. I mean, they obviously have a young team and they fight. They do fight. But I wouldn't say anyone picked the Nationals to be in the playoffs, so you have to beat the teams that you have to beat. Now, he's not wrong. He's not wrong, but I understand, yeah, like I see where he's frustrated. We all do. We all see what's going on here, but players don't usually like it when you're going to the media. And he says the pitching has been doing well. But that was also that's basically just saying the offense hasn't been doing anything. This is why I think Paul Goldschmidt could be a decent bat for them to get, because it kind of just gives them more protection, which is like crazy because I feel like they shouldn't need that. But like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I feel like it's a chemistry thing going on. But he goes on as well to say the whole talk of the year pretty much has been about the offense. I mean, if we're going to be real about it, it's been on us, man. I do like that he said us, He's not saying the wrong things. I just wonder if how the rest of his teammates took that. You got to think with Bogarts here. This is his first year. Maybe he thought this was a moment to really try and, set the tone and be a leader of the clubhouse. But, it's funny because you go back to the Red Sox last year. And I'm not putting this all on Bogarts, but there were reports last year that the clubhouse was a little divided. Bogarts, he said some things publicly. It's like interesting because, he's kind of doing the same sort of thing here. So, I don't know. Anyway, with Xander Bogarts, but the one other thing about him, he got off to the really hot start. In the first month, he was hitting 308. May, he absolutely tanked. June, he's picking it up a little bit. He's hitting 250 in the month of June, but the power's gone down. He's not driving in as many runs. So, he's got a few more games here in the month of June, but I don't know. Bogarts is not really, he's been good. I think he's been a good player for them. Defensively, he's been solid too. I don't know, man. I just feel like this is, I don't know. It's probably not the best way to go. What do I know? I don't know. I haven't played Major League Baseball. I barely played high school baseball. I was not very good in high school, but I like playing. It just doesn't come off to me as like something that his teammates would like. So we'll have to take a look at this. But one guy that his teammates are just loving right now is Ronald Acuna Jr. This guy is absolutely fantastic. Did he hit another home run tonight? I mean, I don't know. Do we got anything? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So, but Ronald Acuna Jr. is having an amazing year. It is rather interesting because obviously it's a good year, but we really could see the first 30-60 year. We are very much on pace, and I actually crunched the numbers. 150 games. 150 games. If he were to play 150, he is on pace right now to hit 35 home runs, 95 RBIs, and 67 stolen bases. Could you imagine if he gets like a 30-70 season? Could you imagine if he gets a 40-70, a 40-60? That's crazy, man. But he did make some history. Him and Joe Morgan are the only players to have 50 RBIs and 35 stolen bases before July, since the RBI became official in 1920. That is amazing. So pretty cool. Ronald Acuna Jr. having an MVP season. Ballcap Sports, he called it. I thought he was going to be a good player this year, like a 5-6 win kind of a player, but this dude is absolutely killing it right now, making history left and right. I feel like every time I get a notification from, fantasy baseball stuff on my phone, it's always Ronald Acuna Jr. hits a home run or something. I feel like I'm always getting an update on him. He is everywhere. The Braves are absolutely amazing right now. It is crazy to see what they're doing. They're just tearing the roof off of the place right now. So, everyone, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm out of here. Thank you for joining me tonight. As always, just wanted to hop on live, talk some baseball with you. We'll be live again Sunday night for the Power Rankings. And, hey, we've had a good turnout for the Power Rankings the last 2 weeks. We've had at least 400 people in the chat the last 2 Sundays. So, hopefully you're all back this Sunday. We'll be doing it yet again. And, everyone, I'm out of here. Go have yourself a good rest of your night. Don't forget about our sponsor tonight, Sorare MLB. It is absolutely my favorite way to play fantasy baseball this year. I've been having a blast with it. Go get yourself started on there if you haven't already. It's completely free to draft your team. Everyone, I'm out of here. Go have yourself a good rest of your night. If you can, on the way out, hit the like button for me. And if you are new, subscribe to the channel. We've been getting a lot of new subscribers lately, so I'd appreciate it if you joined for the ride as well. Have yourself a good night, everyone, and I'll talk to you next time.